Well, I was born. We incarnate and we get whacked on the head. We can't even remember, right? We've got this soul contract. And you know what, Antoine? I must have been off my freaking face and checked every box on my soul contract, every bit of trauma, right? And then it was
Oh
like, okay,
no.
Brigitte, sign on the dotted line. And I did. And off I went.
Welcome to your CEO Self podcast, the show where we delve into the shadows of our own psyche and uncover the hidden aspects of the universe. I'm your host, Antoine Billboard, podcast producer, confidence coach, and trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. Each week, we'll explore topics ranging from ancient wisdom to the interconnectedness of all things, all while learning how to craft our dream reality through the energetic powers of the human mind and heart. So join me as we embark on this journey of manifesting our CEO selves. What's going on, gorgeous soul? Welcome back to your CEO Self podcast, the show that is all about human potential and consciousness expanding conversations. I'm your host, Antoine Billboard, and today we're going to be joined by one extra special guest, Birgitta Visser. Today's conversation didn't go quite as planned. We were supposed to be talking about Birgitta's book, Becoming Authentically Me, which is all about uncovering your soul's purpose. Which is a beautiful topic, don't get me wrong. I would love to have Birgitta again to talk about that. But knowing me, my brain, my interest, the conversation took, as I said, a different route. 2022 was the year of the lifting of the veil, conspiracies. And if you know me, you know that I do love a good conspiracy. And I'm not afraid to say that my tone last year was a lot more aggressive than it is today. Maybe that was because of the stars, or maybe I'm just taking responsibility on myself for having maybe an agenda by inviting guests and taking them in a direction that I wanted to go despite their intentions. But for season 2, I really vow to be more agendaless and open to receive what my guests want to bring to the table. Regardless, the conversation we had was beautiful. And Birgitta, she is so knowledgeable in everything that touches conspiracies, especially in regards of consciousness and other dimensional beings. And she actually communicates with them. Let me just introduce her by reading her bio. So Birgitta is a soul empowerment coach and a light configurator delivering messages from the many light beings across the multiverse to aid humanity. She draws from her myriad life experiences, from the loss of her father as a teenager to the abuse she endured, rolling onto the shores of her adulthood into the relationships of her beautiful yet intoxicated disasters, to holding jobs from modeling, bartending, dog walking, to maneuvering within the corporate world, and much more. She delves into the unraveling of the illusion of the matrix, explaining the current evolution of human consciousness and the shift of the changing tides, and takes a reader on a journey, readers of her book, Being Authentically Me. She takes the readers of her often turbulent roller coaster ride of her current life and many illustrious past lives, both earthly and galactic, deep diving into the split sparks of the atomic infusion of twin flames, delivering real life anecdotes, heartfelt guidance, and powerful messages with humor and practicality to help you re-engage with your highest, most conscious self. Well, if that doesn't sound like your CEO Self podcast in a nutshell, I don't know what does. And here's the thing. When we talk about higher consciousness beings, us humans, based on my own knowledge and understanding, we are third dimensional beings. And we get to experience and live things up to fourth, fifth, maybe sixth dimensional. For example, love, the emotion of love is a fifth dimensional emotion, and we get to tap into that. When we manifest, that's because we connect with this higher part of ourselves that is high vibrational and therefore attract into our reality what we desire. When we vibrate low into third dimensional emotions such as fear, anger, resentment, we repress and push away our desire and we attract more fear, hate, anger, and all of these less desirable emotions. But here's the thing, they all get to be. There's no peace without anger. There's no joy without sadness. Everything is on a duality spectrum. And today's conversation was exactly that. We delved into some dark stuff. We talked about some lower vibrational beings, such as the reptilians, But we also talked about the Arcturians or Pleiadians, which are higher consciousness beings. And let me explain to you how I understand higher consciousness beings to be. Basically, us, as I said, humans were third dimensional. We live on an earth plane, which is physical 3D. We get to touch and experience higher dimensional emotions, but we're kind of trapped in this matrix, in this planet to learn our lessons, to experience things, play around. The earth to me is like a training ground for the soul. We meet people, we get our heart broken, we lie, we love, the whole range of the human experience. So fascinating, isn't it? But the thing with higher consciousness beings is that allegedly they have incarnated enough times to become fourth dimensional beings and then fifth dimensional beings. Now, with our human mind, it can be hard to conceptualize what it is to live in a four-dimensional world or fifth dimensional world. But I do believe that it exists, because if we look at consciousness and it keeps evolving, the universe is infinite. And especially today with UFO sighting in the States and all over the world, there's a big disclosure on extraterrestrial life underway. And I don't know how it's going to happen. Maybe as a hoax, maybe as a cover up, maybe our loving government is going to conceal that in a way that's not too triggering or overwhelming for the population. But life outside of Earth exists. There's life that originates from outside the Earth that is on the Earth. They've been communicating and collaborating with our loving government. They've been in contact with humans such as Birgitta, and they're helping. Some of them are not helping, or they're helping their own agenda. Remember, we live in a dual world, so the good and the bad both coexist, the yin and the yang. And there are also well-intentioned beings that are here for our ascension, to help us evolve and expand our consciousness. If you're watching this and you are a higher consciousness being, you're welcome to come to my podcast or in my dreams to deliver me some messages. So back to today's conversation with Birgitta. Even though we didn't talk necessarily about what we had planned, my neurodivergent brain was just thriving with all of the knowledge and wisdom that Birgitta has. She so graciously answered all of my questions. I was so curious. And even though we didn't dive deep into any specific topic, we did touch on a lot of things, which makes for a beautiful, enlightening, and consciousness expanding conversation. And I cannot wait for you to hear all about it. So without further ado, let's dive right into today's episode with Birgitta Visser on your CEO Self podcast.
But when I was a kid, well, life was dandy, life was good, right? Until about the age of 10. And that's when the abuse started for a friend of the family. Now, back in the 80s, life was different than to what it is now, right? People go to counseling and all that stuff. In the 80s, it was very different. So I didn't say anything about it. I just didn't know how to tell my parents. And even prior to that, I had two encounters. And one was with because I grew up in Singapore, Malaysia. And the Malaysian teacher who taught Bahasa Malaysian, he kept stroking my legs. And my sister thought that was odd until she told my parents. And then I had to go to the head teacher and I had to write this account of exactly what happened. And as like a 10 or 11-year-old kid, you feel very uncomfortable, right? And then what happened was the teacher got fired. And I felt so guilty. As a child, you feel guilty because,
Oh no.
he lost his job. And even though they said, Birgitta, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, what he did was inappropriate. But that was the first instance. And then, the abuse from a friend in the family. And that, my life kind of snowballed, because the thing is, when you go through trauma as a kid, right, and you don't deal with it, right, you don't heal, you keep rolling into toxic experiences, because that is what you attract. That's your energetic resonance, as I call it. And so, oh my God, I was bullied at school because I was tall and lanky. I had like mosquito legs and arms. And I even threw away my sandwiches. I didn't eat properly. My mom didn't know that because I kept it, I kept a tight lid on it. And, but I must say now I have a very, very close relationship with my mom. I can tell her anything, but growing up, it's kind of different. And then my dad passed away when I was 14, didn't help me either. And, my self-confidence got so dented. I remember going on a school trip to the Ardennes, the Ardennes forest in Belgium, and feeling so uncomfortable. And this kid came up to me, popular kid, and he puts my arm up in front of everyone and he goes, "Finishes!" And I was just like, I felt horrified, because I hated being so skinny. I hated it. I just had problems with who I was and my body and everyone at school. I mean, the kids at school were just, I looked at the girls and I thought, you know what? They've got everything. I'm flat chested. I've got nothing and I'm just bony and they've got curves. And yeah, it just didn't help. Nothing, nothing helped. And it went on to me going into the modeling industry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, well, got abused there too. It was just one thing after the other. And so I rolled into many, well, not many, but several toxic relationships. And each one was different. It was like, my guides were like, well, let's see, Birgitta is not learning. Let's see what we can give her now. Like,
What was the lesson?
the lesson was, Birgitta, you know what? Because I was a messed up kid. I was a messed up teenager. And then going into adulthood, I was even more messed up because I wasn't wired the right way. It's like, you're going to laugh at this. But the first boyfriend I had was at 21 and a half. And I met him in Istanbul when I was bartending because I went out there for the modeling. But me being me, I just wanted to work. I've always been like that. I started working when I was 15. And so when I was out there, I met this guy and I kissed him, right? And I thought, shit, I've got to be with this guy because I felt like I couldn't back out. I had no clue about men. I had no clue about relationships. See, I was a terrible green bean. And, I was actually afraid of guys at school because of the trauma I had endured as a kid. And so, that didn't last because I just, I, it was me, my soul wasn't aligned with my body and I just wasn't feeling right. And I would have tantrums, it was terrible. And we just weren't right for each other. I always say we were like a toxic storm in a teacup. We were both very young and we had to grow. But then, I rolled into other toxic relationships, one who was a crack addict, didn't even know it. And the last one, he moved away for an hour away to 2 doors down when I was out in Florida because I traveled the world. But he wouldn't leave me alone. He lost his mom. He got very depressed, bless his heart. And he procrastinated in life. But throughout my whole life, you see, I'm a survivor. I know you can put me in the middle of a desert and I'll be fine. I will find work because I have always had that drive in me, always, regardless of whether I was legal or not in the country, right? They always depended on me financially a lot of the times. And I think that was, in a way, it was kind of my fault. It's not really fault, it's an experience, right? But I enabled them because I wanted them to do better for themselves. But you can't fix someone when you yourself are broken, right? That doesn't work. Everybody has to grow in their own time, I say, in their own divine time, so to speak. And if you hamper their growth, which is actually what I did, I hampered their growth, right? And what I should have done was pull back and let them hit the bottom of that rock. Yeah. And I didn't. But I had to learn that. I really had to learn that. And I also had to learn that I had to love myself and I had to forgive myself and heal up. Because after Holland, that was actually the catalyst, the first part of me healing myself.
How did your life start to change as you started healing yourself? Because you know this vocabulary, but a lot of karmic relationship, maybe we attract. And I even find myself in that seat of distracting myself from healing myself by giving support to other people. But that's because I don't like to see other people suffering. Or maybe I have some people pleasing tendencies. So let me give you all of my focus and make sure that you're not hurt. But then my own baggage remains. So I keep perpetuating or acting from that hurt place historically. Before we keep going, let's hear a word from our sponsors. In this house, we're all about human and consciousness optimization, and I'm happy to share the natural support I get from Mother Earth. Balancing inner peace with entrepreneurship can be a real challenge, which is why I love to keep my cognitive functions on check with some adaptogen and functional mushrooms. Thanks to numerous studies from the Johns Hopkins Center and MAPS, we can now see the benefits of these plant medicine on mental health, brain function, focus, mood, productivity, neurogenesis, and even more. Let's start with Volum Health. Volum Health makes microdosing simple, safe, and effective. All of their products are vegan, organically and sustainably produced in Vancouver, and tested for quality, consistency, and potency. They range from actual raw mushroom to pre-capsuled microdoses and all the way to sweet, delicious gummies. I personally love using their microdosing products following a 3-day protocol. It helps regulate my mood and increases my focus when I'm creating, and it makes me more present in moments like this one. I also love using them to enhance a day at the beach, a hike in nature, or an evening with friends by the campfire. If you want to get your hand on some Volum Health goodies, visit their website at volumhealth.com following the link in the show notes, and make sure to use code CEO10 for 10% off all of your orders. Again, visit volumhealth.com and use code CEO10 for 10% off. Now let's talk about Dojivi. Dojivi is an amazing alternative to coffee. I was looking for ways to reduce my caffeine consumption when I found a local brand that produced premium, healthy mushroom coffee. Their blend contains adaptogens and functional plants such as turkey tail, lion's mane, shaga, and reishi, all of which paired with rich, tasty Colombian Arabica coffee. Not only does it support my cognitive function, but I'm also feeling more energized, I don't get any afternoon crashes, and I sleep better. If you're also thinking about cutting down on caffeine, consider Dojivi. You can find out more about them and their mushroom coffee by visiting dojivi.com and make sure to use code CEO10 to save 10% off all of your orders. Again, use code CEO10 at dojivi.com to save 10% off. All the links in the show notes. And now, back to the episode. So, how did it look like for you to take responsibility for yourself, and like what questions did you ask yourself, and how did you see the shift happen?
I chose that. I really chose that because I could not go on anymore. After Holland, because I had my life threatened by the Crips in Holland. And my mom got me out of there in the space of a few days. And because I helped my ex, he had been, to cut a long story short, he affiliated himself with the Crips, and he was from the US. And I had never, ever been, yes, I dabbled in drugs when I was younger, right? But it was a short stint of like 3 months after my stepdad passed away, which was in the year 2000. And I just had the wrong kind of friends. I wouldn't say the wrong kind of friends. It was just my experience. Yeah, I took about 9 E's a night and I nearly killed myself. But I'm still here.
A fighter.
Yes. So the Trips asked for a ransom, and anyhow, I helped the police get to him. And then my ex was deported back to the US. And so when I was back in the UK, I made this feeble attempt at, to end my life with a box of ibuprofens. Well, the only thing that happened was I had a good night's sleep and I got rid of the headache. That was it. And then I went to see a counselor. My mom said, Birgitta, go and see a counselor. So I did. And do you know what the counselor said? She listened to my story and she's like, Birgitta, you're going to be fine. You're strong enough. You'll be okay. And I was like, I did. Yeah, that's not, that's not really counseling. And so I thought, no, I really need to heal up. And I did my research and I found a Reiki healer. And that was the first time. I'd never heard of Reiki, but I found it online and I went to see her, and it was the best thing ever for me. And that's how I started my healing journey and releasing a lot of stuff. And I also studied Reiki level 1 and 2. And in a weekend, it took me 1.5 years because, we had to do case studies back then and everything and get the guinea pigs. And from there on, I studied many other healing modalities because I wanted to learn more. I wanted to absorb the knowledge. And as a teenager, I already started reading cards. So I was always fascinated by that. And my dad Yeah, my dad was actually a Rosicrucian, something I did not really understand until probably 2 years ago when I was writing my book. So he already worked with many of the Ascended Masters at the time. Except, now you can find all the information on Google, right? Back then in the 80s, everything was sent to you via mail and they charged you a bucket load for these studies.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it was different back then. And, my dad had a family to take care of, but he was so focused on that, on the Rosicrucian teachings, he kind of lost his way and he thought he could cure himself because he had coronary heart disease. And he thought he could cure himself and he just wasn't, he meditated, which was great, but he did not heal and alchemize his trauma. So that remained intact. And so one day he was cycling and he fell off his bike, took a last breath, and that was it. So, yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago in 1988. He's still around. But yeah, going back to the healing process. So I studied the emotional freedom technique, which I love because of its simplicity. Yes, the tapping. Yeah,
Yes. And it works.
it does.
I mean, does it? I haven't stretched the practice long enough, but I understand the concept. I've actually had a guest on the show and we did a live EFT and I felt like I felt my shoulders relax and I even like had a spontaneous exhale and was like, wow, this feels so good. We tapped on the feeling of overwhelm.
Yep.
And the person who performed it on me, she was like, you need to tap on overwhelm. And just through the screen, she was able to sense it. She was also Reiki, I believe. So super powerful. Can you expand on tapping actually?
Yeah, so I did that and I really enjoyed it. And again, it wasn't overnight because when I started to do that, I was like, what the heck is this? But I was fascinated. And the course took about 6 months. And I also had case studies of one of my best friends who had a fear of mollusks, so snails. And
okay.
yeah.
Cute.
And at the end of it, at the end of it, several days later, she's like, oh my gosh, I passed a snail on the street after it rained and I didn't go screaming, running to the other side of the road. And she's like, this is really incredible. And so there is an exercise in my book with the Ascended Master Saint Germain. It is so simple, yet so powerful, right? It is because the phrase, I'm sure you must have heard it. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. If you tap that on all the points, right? And you repeat that, and there are some other affirmations you can insert. But when you repeat that and you do that about 10 times, you are as high as a kite, so to speak. It's like you just opened up. That is how powerful that is. It's a very simple sentence, right? 2 sentences, but it works miracles.
It is so interesting because I found this book, Unveiled Mysteries, in a thrift shop.
Yeah.
And they talk about Saint Germain. They talk about the law of attraction with vocabulary from the 19th century.
Yes.
So it's very religious, very churchy, but like it makes a lot of sense. And they actually say that America is going to be the birthing place of the new earth because there's just so much darkness here.
You know what? So if you have the word America, right? And you change how do you say that in English? You change the
order of the
letters
letters
around. Yes.
Okay.
What do you get? EIN race. So it's the forerunners of indeed the new golden age, the new earth.
Okay, we can talk about that.
So that makes sense, right? And this is also in my book, actually. He also said it comes from this, he just said the southern tip of the Americas. I still believe that to be Florida, and then working its way up. But there is a big but. It is not up to them up there. It is up to us to make the change. And the only way we are going to make the change is when we work from within. Everything comes from within, right? If people are going to look up at a savior or a leader, whatever, don't even get me started on politics because that is so corrupt to the core.
It is so corrupted.
Oh, so corrupt.
There
are species in there you do not actually want to encounter.
Yes, I'm watching the documentary The Fall of the Cabal, the sequel. and I'm
Mhm.
reading Battleheim, Revelations of a Sinister Plan for a New World Order. So I'm very much in this material right now. So
Mhm.
it does take a toll on my mood. I do want to strangle people sometimes, but then I trust the plan. And also, I can't just remain passive. I mean, the reason why I'm digesting this information is because I want to have a whole picture so that I can better serve people, better craft my offers, because I'm not gonna just pretend everything is fine. Delusion can be cute, but like to your point, we can't just wait for a savior to come. It has to come from within. Even with extraterrestrial encounters, there's I don't know if you know about Dr. Stephen Greer. He came up with the CE5 protocol, and there's literally an app on your phone that you can download, and it takes you through this medication where you can call in these entities. And there have been a lot of successful contact, but of course the military steps in. So a plan would be that so many people at the same time contact these beings that we overwhelm the military, and that it's just so obvious that these beings are peaceful and just beings of light. Because they can just, and that's just me sharing my understanding, and maybe you can chime in because you are a channeler as well. But they can just come in and save us, because that would just be another dictature and imposing something. It has to be a choice. It has to be like, this is what democracy is. It's literally casting our vote internally for the new earth. How is that?
I like that, except humanity's evolution is its own. That does not mean we do not get help. That does not mean that the Galactic Federation does not intervene. Does
Mm-hmm.
not mean that some people that hold power, so to speak, are not in contact with them, because they are, right? But you have to look at the Earth is like upside down, inside out. It's like Alice in Wonderland, topsy turvy. That's what you said at Master Saint Germain always says. He says the villains are actually the heroes, and the heroes are the villains in this story.
I
In this earthly
know.
story.
I
Yes.
have chills. I just want to say how grateful I am that you're here. Because like building a close circle to have these conversations with is so challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have these conversations so that we can move forward and bring a collective effort for something better. Because as you said, the people who present themselves as heroes are the villains.
Yep. That's just the way it is. It's something. I don't have a TV, nothing. I don't even watch nothing. I don't care. I mean, I get the information from up there, and that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell you that the world will become a better place. It's not going to go overnight, because we need to work through our duality. Without duality, we wouldn't understand day or night, hate or love, so to speak, all the polarities. And so everything that's going on is a big wake up call for many, not everyone, but it's okay. You may not agree with one another, but you can still accept and love them anyway, because everyone vibrates at a different level of consciousness. And that's okay. Everybody's journey is unique. But in the end, Antoine, we're here to walk another back home. But we're here to return to a love of ourselves, right? And each other. We've forgotten how to do that because we live so much in separation of ourselves, and we compare too much. That's the ego, right? The ego is better than our mind. And, we've conditioned ourselves so much with all these labels everywhere.
Oh,
Mea culpa, because, I've had it for the longest time. But I have no shame or fear anymore. So I speak my truth, regardless of how people feel about me. I always say, hate me, love me, treat me like Marmite. I will still love you anyway. And I do. I can tell you, Antoine, I love you because I do. And that's because I don't see us as separate. We're all one. And when I say, we're all one, the light inside of us, our soul, is cut from the same bark of wood, right? We all come from Source Creator. Just because we've chosen a different physical shell doesn't mean we're different. We're all brothers and sisters of the light, but we don't understand that anymore. We've lost that concept.
I love the shell example. I see the body as a remote, in which we played a video game, but like the player is the same. It's like the same player playing with different video remotes, the same video game. And yeah, what I want to ask you is like, how do you nurture this love and compassion for whatever is?
I had to learn that. I really had to learn it. And I think I'm very fortunate. I mean, I only started channeling back in 2017. It didn't, I mean, my life was a process. Healing is a process. I always say healing is like an onion, right? You go
Mm-hmm.
through stages in life and you experience something, and to heal up, you've got to peel back that onion, cry your eyes out, right? But then you heal up and then you get another experience and so forth, right? Because we're always work in progress. But yeah, so I'm fortunate that I've had many of the masters teach me, but I've also had to learn myself, because there was a time, even in Florida, where I was on the floor crying so hard. And I was mad at the world. I was mad at spirit. I was mad at God. And I was
Mm.
shouting. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I cannot take care of people anymore. I said, I'm done. I'm done living like a prisoner in my own home. I even sold my home to get away from my ex. Sold my home that I really, really loved, and bought another one that wasn't, it just didn't have the right feel. So, only 8 months later, I left. But I was on the floor crying because I couldn't take it anymore. I had to pay my own bills. I had to pay his bills, and help him out as and when. But I never really had that victimhood, that victim mentality, because I always soldiered on. This is who I was. And so before channeling, I did Kambo. Kambo is, I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have my scars.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it because it's so physical,
Mhm.
absolutely physical. And you purge left, right, and center.
How many rounds did you do?
Well, I did one, and then I went back for a second one
Mhm.
in Florida. God, it was amazing. And then I had another one in the UK, but that one wasn't as good.
Mm. Yeah, it's crazy. The one who was performing the Kembo could sense my ego fighting back.
Yes,
And I was,
yes.
I know, it's crazy. It's like they know what you're battling. And like, he's like, oh,
Yes.
this time you were cleansing your organs. And like the second time it was more an ego thing. And my friend was doing it next to me. We definitely bonded over that experience. But like my friend, after the ceremony, the guy was like, oh, what's your relationship with your parents? And then my friend's like, why are you asking me this? But like, turns out that during the Kembo, she was going through an internal process of figuring something with her relationship with her parents. So the medicine is powerful.
Yeah, and I always say to people this: if you want a more physical experience rather than Reiki, because you're not sure, because it's like, I can't feel it, do
Hmm.
Kambo, because that will change your mind. But even after Kambo, I started to change. That's how powerful it was. I started to make a bucket list of everything that I wanted to do. And the first thing I put on there was, because my stepdad passed away from cancer in 2000. And I always said I was going to run for charity. Well, that stayed in my imagination for about 16, 17, 16 years, until I finally started to run. I loved it. I really, really loved it. So that was the first thing. And then I went skydiving because I was scared of heights. Oh, I was just screaming.
Wow.
I did it. I mean, I did quite a few things, yeah. But I went to a workshop because Spirit actually kicked me out of my house, and they're like, "You're going to go to this fair." And I'm like, "No, Birgitta, you're gonna go." And it was only a 5-minute walk, and I went, and I met my former mentor there, Alania Starhawk, and she does Akashic record healing. And I'm telling
Mhm.
you, it's powerful. That is another powerful way to heal, because you walk through your past lives, right? And when we talk about karmic relationships, because my ex was a karmic relationship, both of them were. The one in Holland, who was a crack addict, and the one in Florida. And mind you, though, I love them for having been in my life, because they were wonderful teachers. Without them, I
Yes.
would not be who I am today. So I truly love them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
Same for
mean,
my boyfriend at the time.
yeah. So you did Akashic record healing as well?
No, I just had a toxic relationship, but that's pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's the same thing, same thing. But you know, Antoine, that could be because you've known him in a past life and something could have happened there, and this is what you had to finish.
Mm.
I mean, with the one in Holland, I've had several lifetimes with him. He's actually my twin flame, but twin flames do not always end up together because if you don't vibrate at that same level, then there is no point in continuing. There just isn't. And
So
yeah.
yeah, twin flames. How do you personally define them? Because I know they're soulmates, twin flames. We have
Yes.
several soulmates. Some we can have a romantic relationship, some we don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say the easiest way to do it, I've written about this as well, but it's twin flames.
Yep.
It's two sides of the same coin. That's the easiest way to explain it. So it's like being shot at, you have a nucleus and it's being slingshot and you're split in half, so to speak. So you're the yin to your yang, always, always. And when you incarnate with your twin flame, you can end up with them, but they carry the most traumatic experiences, honestly. And soulmates, I always say, you're mates of the same tribe, so to speak. And, throughout the many lives that you live, you just change characters. And it can be a brother, sister, it can be a relationship. But twin flames do not always incarnate together. It's not necessary. But I think many in this era have because they need to transcend their shadow sides, especially because we live in such transformational times and people have to do the shadow work.
Oh,
Years
God.
ago, yes, you have to do it. You have to get through it, honestly. And it's tough. It's not easy.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I was saying to my guides, and this was when I had the workshop with Alania. She put us through a meditation. But when she counted to 3, I was gone. And then when she counted back, 3, 2, 1 is when I came back. And everyone had seen the masters and the archangels and you name it, and colors and everyone, and they had messages. And I sat there. I was really upset, but thankfully, I'm one of these kind of antisocial shitbirds. I like to sit in my own little corner. And so I did, and I was really upset and I was crying and I was wiping my eyes with the sleeve of my vest. But she gave one exercise to everyone. And that was like how she started channeling. And she sat with her notepad and pen one night and she said to spirit, "I'm ready to receive." That's what she said. And I thought, when the class was finished, I darted out, went home, I had something to eat, and then I sat down and I actually did the exercise. And I mean, I was like, oh my God, I was crying because it just flowed and it was tears of joy. And I thought, really, I'm good at something. Even though I taught Reiki and all that stuff, it was really something I felt like I was good at. And
Channeling.
yeah, channeling.
Well, it
Yeah,
must
and
require a level of trust, of self-trust, right?
yes,
Like what's my
yes.
thought and what's being channeled?
Yeah. I think it was just that light bulb moment that I had. Something in my brain just was like, okay, I'm just going to sit, not going to think, just not going to think. Because I think I was way far gone because of the experience I had earlier that evening. And it just flowed. And it was old English prose. And I just went with it. And then when I saw Alania next, a week later, because I channeled a bit more, she said to me, "Birgitta, you see, all you needed to do was just unblock the heaviness within." And I said, "But Alania, I've never channeled before." And she just looked at me. She's like, "Are you serious?" She's like, "Because this is proper channeling." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I kept going.
Wow.
And people always ask me, well, how do you do it then? I said, well, take a deck of cards. I don't care if it's the angels or the ascended masters, whatever. And I said, shuffle them, pick a card, and then just channel whoever you get, whoever's on the card. Don't go searching in Google. Just sit with it, with the energy, and whatever comes through, just accept it.
Mm. I feel that there's a lot of that acceptance and self-trust. And as soon as you start to interfere, that's when the doubt settles in.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to ask you, like, how does someone get into channeling? But I'm assuming that it starts with something like a practice such as meditation, but it's just listening. It's just
It's listening.
listening.
Yeah. I also meditate. This is very true.
Mm,
But I like working with Lord Shananda always slaps me. Well, not slaps me. You know, he used to be Jesus Christ, but he's Lord Shananda. He's actually from Venusian descent. And
Venus.
he always reminds me of breathing. So it's breathing from your root chakra, right? All the way up. And it's, if you can't do the count of 8 yet, then do 4 and then back out 4. But the more you do it, the more you can count to 8 and then out back 8 and hold it for 8. And then you keep going. And you will feel that you will come to that 0 point. And that is amazing, because not only that, but when you start your day, you're far more clearer in your head rather than you have these racing thoughts. And you're like this hamster on a treadmill. You know, and when you go to sleep, it's the same thing. And sometimes I like to listen to, it's on YouTube, 432 hertz guided meditation. I
And
love
why
that
this one?
because it helps. I like it because it speaks to my soul, but it's really to release the stress of the day and to get you calm and centered again.
And God knows we're stressed.
Well, how we allow it, don't we? Just like
Yeah.
we choose all of our experiences. And I always say there is no right or wrong in anything you choose to experience, because life, after all, life is an experiment to experience, right?
It's a training ground for the soul.
It is, absolutely. It's, I always say, and this is the Ascended Master Saint Germain, but also Archangel Michael. I love Archangel Michael because he's like a Jack the Lad to me, right? You can have a beer with him. I don't drink beer, but okay. He's very, very funny. And they always say humanity, everyone is playing this cosmic game of evolution. And it's like a board game of life, right? That's what it is. And through your experiences, you move forward on this board of life. And you climb like the Jacob's ladder.
Yeah.
It's all about evolving.
And at some point, I believe you stop reincarnating, and well, just like the Ascended Masters, you may become one. But that's a process. If the listeners want to know more, there's a book called Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton that explains some of the process. But I would love to know about your book, Becoming. Can you explain why it's split in 3 parts?
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you. Oh,
It wasn't me. I mean, becoming authentically me. So they split it in 3 the first in 3 parts. So B-COM-ING, because when you rearrange the letters, it becomes being.com, right?
Oh.
And that, and .com stands for, well, of course, that's a suffix for websites, but it also means, so you would say being the creation of myself, because we are always creating ourselves, right? And so that's what it was. And I thought, oh, that's actually really cool. So, and it's the same with the cover. I mean, it took me a while. I designed that with the Galactic Federation and the Council of Ra.
Oh my God. So you speak to all of them. Ra, Love One, the Galactic Federation.
I do. You know, it's really strange. And that's why I see myself. And it's funny because I'm Dutch. I'm a Dutch mutt, actually, but because I have different nationalities. But I was born in Holland. And I always say I'm a cosmic wave rider. I'm a bike messenger between the here and there. I'm like a courier because, I just channel anyone that has a message to convey. So it could be any of the galactics, like the Anunnaki. I love the Anunnaki, the Pleiadians, the Arturians.
Yes.
For me, it's kind of easy.
How does the communication look like? Do you feel like they're reaching out, or is it you reaching out and you just tune into a frequency and you get an update? Or is this like a call from both sides? How does it look like?
Do you remember as kids? This just reminded me of something. Do you remember as kids where you had the little tin and it had the little
wire,
the wire, and on the other hand, there you'd have your friend and you'd be talking like that. It's kind of like that. But, sometimes I will sit and I will ask, "Oh, have you got a message?" But sometimes they'll be like, it'll be like at night and I want to go to sleep. Excuse me, Brigitta,
Wow.
And so I just have like this app on my phone and I just type away because the voice thing doesn't always work. It doesn't understand my words. So I just type it in really quickly on the app that I have. But the one thing I will say to you is, when I ask them for help, especially Archangel Michael, right? And they're like, "Oh, yeah, you can put a bubble around you. That's great. But you want to face your fears. Well, what do you think he's going to do? Oh, I'm going to protect you from your fears." Oh, heck no. You know what he does? He shoves you he really shoves you straight into your fears, because the only way you're going to overcome your fears is by walking through them, right?
Mm,
Have to face them,
yeah,
because otherwise you're just playing Houdini with yourself and eluding yourself continuously.
I
And I
love
always
that.
say to people, if you want to live an abundant life in all ways, then you have to walk through the crap. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
how hard your life is, but don't come. I always say to people, don't come to me and say, "Oh, but this has happened to me and this has happened to me. And I feel so sorry for myself. I can't move forward." Yeah,
Yeah, no,
it's not
there's no
life.
point in remaining in self-pity and just,
No, there isn't.
crying about it. And yeah, no, I believe in zooming out and then focusing on what works well, because we can be so
Yes.
zoomed in our own misery. And I'm not saying it's not
Yes.
valid. Maybe we're a single working mom. Maybe we live in an
Yep.
environment that's not nourishing, but there is always something we can focus on, that we can
Yes.
grab onto. There's always people, and sometimes those might not come until later in life, but whatever we go through, you're probably a living example of that, serves us.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I'm going to tell you something. I will tell you this now. I don't need my card back for this. I can tell you this now. But Gabriel, you're very creative, right? I don't know if you've started writing a book, but it's not just your podcast, because there's a whole lot more to you than you allow people to see. Okay. I do understand, Gabriel, but it's really about, and this is why I say walking through the shadow sides of yourself, right? And alchemizing and healing up, because we're all divine alchemists anyway. But you are extremely, extremely creative. And it's not
Thank
just
you.
that, but you are also a healer. And it's fun. Okay, fine. You're finding your way. So sometimes it's like, you're showing this to me. It's quite funny. Sometimes it's like you hit your head on the tree trunk, right? And you stand there and you're like, and you're thinking, how am I supposed to move forward? And it's like, yeah, but Antoine, all you need to do is take that step sideways and just, move forward on your path. Sometimes with you, it's like taking a step forward and 2 steps back, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. It's okay. And I think you're still young. And I think, we're eternal anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you will get there, but you have a book in you. And if you haven't started writing it, I think you will. You will start.
I
You
believe
do.
for me that we don't get random ideas and
No,
things that do come.
no.
Yeah, things that do come often, they come back for a reason. So I've always had the idea of a book. At
Mhm.
first, it was
Yeah.
about making it fiction or romanticized fiction about all the lessons I learned in my past relationships.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's an idea. I've always like the van life, the nomad lifestyle keeps coming back. So I know our desires are here for a reason. We have them for a reason. It's what we're meant for. But thank you for reminding me of alchemizing that shadow and believing in my dream.
Do you know that the easiest way to alchemize shadows is light language? And I mean, I know Louise Rhodes here in the UK. She's amazing. She's phenomenal. She's helped me tremendously. Also walks, release a lot of karma, even my galactic lives. And it's like when you have a pain or you pull the muscle or something, there is a reason for it. It's not sometimes that, I work out, but it's not always the gym. Sometimes it's persistent. And she just goes in like that. It's like an hour session, boom, done, the pain is gone. That's how powerful it is, because light language speaks directly to the soul. It's like Akashic record healing, which is a little different, of course, but that's also, you clear the karma, it's gone and it's gone.
Mm.
And I know that people often walk the Western route, right? When it comes to being ill, when you have cancer or anything. My stepdad passed away of cancer, but he said to me, and this is years later, he said to me, no, it was my own fault. I created this dis-ease within myself. And because I couldn't voice who I was and how I felt. And so all these pent up emotions, it came out in the form of cancer. And the one thing people forget, and when I say we are divine alchemists, that's the Ascended Master Saint Germain, by the way, it's transforming let to go, but it's transforming your own heaviness to an enlightened version of yourself, right? To become more of an authentic version of yourself, because you transform the experiences. And we ourselves are our greatest healers. But yet we often look without, and we need to look within. We've lost that. We've lost the ability, or many people have lost the ability to heal themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Atlantean times or Lemurian times where people understood the crystal beds.
Atlantean times, I feel like they had, well, it's all happening at once, isn't it? So we could communicate with ourselves from there.
Yes, absolutely. I've done that with my past lives. I have. And it's so easy, because for me, it's easy. I just step into that lifetime and it's like, I can see, but then I also get the channeled message from me that once was, and it's amazing. It really is.
In the book Unreal Mysteries, they were able to space and time travel across the earth and just go back to a different era, like as if everything was as is. Where in present time, everything was ruined. So it just shows how much of today's reality is just a facet of it. And there's just so much more that we're not taught in school. We have capacities we don't get to develop, psychic abilities. And I feel like there is beauty in how it is right now. But I have this hunger and curiosity, and my mind just goes, my imagination just runs free about like how beautiful would it be to have Atlantis with the level of technology we have today to, enhance and benefit the human experience rather than deplete it for a more, I don't know, different agenda.
So do you not think that Atlantean technology has not been lost?
It might be locked away.
Oh, it's locked away. It was locked away.
We need a second episode.
No, it was locked away under the Vatican, 57 miles of tunnels. That's one. I don't know what happened to that now, but the tech is available. There is so much that I have seen in the South Americas when I was channeling in the tunnels from, not to mention Antarctica. Oh, dearie me.
Jesus. Okay. I have. So basically, you're telling me that everything I dive into, you already okay. But yeah, Antarctica, the Agartha, Inner Earth.
Yes.
Free energy, Tesla, all of that. And even in the book, they took Saint Germain. He took the person she was assisting with their ascension. He took them into these caves, showing the technology and how beautiful and massive it is. And I had a question. It is said that there is going to be the return of Christ, but they were going to be Christ in appearance, just to kind of piggyback on how you were saying that those who look like heroes are actually the villains. It says that the secrets of the Vatican are going to be exposed, and there's going to be this false sense of revelation, but that's going to be a step. I don't know how to speak, but and I mean, I know nothing. I can just repeat what I've read, but yeah, how was the tea?
So you remember, everything you read or see is always a piece to the puzzle. It's a piece to the puzzle of life. And let's not get started on the Vatican though. But there's so much, like the Bible. The Bible, I mean, I poured it part in my book, because the Anunnaki are the creators of mankind. But it's not just the Anunnaki. right? It's also the Pleiadians, the Arcturians. I mean, it was a massive, massive joint project. There is so much about the Anunnaki, and I love them because, the archangels, right? What does the word archangel mean? Everything is in the wording. Everything is dancing. The wordplay is dancing in front of your eyes, and people are so dumbed down that they don't realize it. But archangel, and this is quite a funny story because when I used to pole dance for quite some months, and it was great until I tore all the ligaments of my upper body and I could hardly breathe.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, I loved doing it, but I had to stop after that because that really it was too much. And so Archangel Raphael was like, well, Birgitta, I'm going to help heal you if you are going to channel what the meaning of Archangel is. I'm like, oh, deal. So Archangel, right? ARC is a spacecraft. Let's leave the H as the heavens, but angels are celestial beings of the heavens, right? So spacecrafts and celestial beings of the heavens. Hang on a minute. Wait, of course, the archangels are star seeds. It's not, and it's quite funny because the wings were only added in medieval times.
Okay. Wow. Wow. So there have been star seeds. I mean, Jesus Christ was a star seed.
It's Venusian.
I love how when I mention these things, people think I'm crazy, but you're just like, yeah. I had tea with him last night.
It's like Saint Germain is of Syrian descent. Lord Sanat Kumara, who is the overall you have Sir Shiran, who is the captain of the Galactic Federation of Light. But the overall, the one who is above Ashtar, is Lord Sanat Kumara, who is also of Venusian descent.
Wow. There's just so many things we could dive into, like technology, the Vatican, the ley lines and different places on Earth that have different resonance, and the Earth chakras.
Yes, the Earth chakras. Good point. You mentioned something so important.
Oh, do you talk about it in your book?
Yes, I do. Funnily enough, I think I touch on everything in my book.
I'm gonna get the book.
It touches on everything, literally everything. And the Earth has a chakra system, but what has you call it the Cabal. I call them a little differently, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So what have they done? They have constricted the Earth's energy centers on purpose. So it's like when our chakras are blocked, right? They've done the same to Mother Earth because we are living, breathing beings, but so is Mother Earth, right? Mm-hmm. And we have to understand we pollute ourselves as much as we pollute Mother Earth. We disrespect Mother Earth because we disrespect ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it's like we have no love for Mother Earth because we don't have enough love ourselves. But everything was done by design. It was created that way. And now people are starting to realize, oh, hang on a minute, but actually the Earth is a conscious being. It was created over thousands and thousands of years so that we could commence the experiment here. Mm-hmm. And eventually in millions of years, the Earth will have reached the peak of its evolution, and is done and will turn into a beautiful supernova, and other planets will be birthed into existence. Mm-hmm. But this is why we're here. We're here because we need to wake the hell up, right? Remember who we are and why we're here. And we need to help Mother Earth, help Mother Earth heal and transcend and ascend, because it's already happening. But it's a slow progress, and that's why I say it's really up to us.
And how are they constricting the chakras?
I mean, look at how everything is built, first of all. Everything is, when we go back to Atlantean times, ancient Egyptian times, everything was built in conjunction with Mother Earth, because
the golden ratio.
The mother. Yeah, they worship the mother. Yeah, you're talking about the golden ratio as well. Yeah, so everything was built according to sacred geometry, because we ourselves are sacred geometrical beings. Mm-hmm. And they're like, We're not mathematical equations. Yeah, actually, we are mathematical equations. Hello.
Amen.
What do you think our DNA is? What do you
Oh,
think
the
the human
spiral. Yeah.
and so there's just so much. And I just know that like Antarctica, I mean, that's a base, it's a portal. You go up into it, you can't see it from the top, but when you go in, it's subterranean levels, many, many levels. And yeah, it's run by the reptilians, they're draconians, they're chimera spiders. I love the species. I talk about them in my book
There's
as
a
well.
spider species.
Yes, they're horrible. Yes,
Oh,
I know exactly. I know.
yeah, that's why I hate believing in those, not believing, but like these things coming to my
Oh,
awareness. And I'm like, okay, possibly like the crews,
ah,
like the little trunk people, they're super cute. I'm like, I'll go live with them. Fine. But like some of the species that I
oh,
see, and when you start realizing that Hollywood is not lying, the movies are not fiction, you're like, oh,
what do you think about Star Trek? Star Trek's not a lie. Star Wars is not a lie. They make
no.
in my book they make a lot of reference to there's Star Wars in there, but then there's also Marvel in there. Every movie, especially sci-fi, has such an element of truth in it.
Well, the
It
Matrix.
is
Hello.
oh yeah, it's really funny. I saw part of the Matrix. I never finished watching it, but I talk so much about the Matrix in my book because I do
Mhm.
understand it.
Well, it
Um,
is a phenomenon of it in and of itself that is exaggerated in the movies. Like like the humans are literally plugged in and unconscious, and they
yeah,
see a different dream. But like if you look at virtual reality, it's exactly that. You think that what you see is real.
yeah,
So if you perfectly script a story and you
yeah,
repeat it enough to a population, they will live that dream. And that's what's
yes,
going on. And so many of my
absolutely,
close friends my very, very close friends are living that dream. And they think the villains are the nice people, and they think the nice people are the villains. And it heats them up. They get so upset. And part of me just wants to be like, no, he's trying to save us. But I can't because then I hit a belief, I hit their conditioning, and then I'm
yes,
crazy. And then they just push away any attempt of me soothing them. So all I say is just, you know what? You resenting that person, no matter what they did, is not serving you. It's not serving them. It's just
no,
hurting you. Let it go.
yeah,
That's the best you can do for yourself. Just let it go. And the
yeah,
karma will take care of the rest. And I'm like, by karma, I think they think that the karma will get to the person they think, but I'm like, no, truth's gonna come to the surface. And then I'm gonna be like, I'm not gonna say I told you so. I'm gonna love them. But like
yes.
I'll have a face that says it all. What about Area 51? Are they holding actually good beings there and concealing it into like bad aliens?
I don't
Can
know
I
too much
ask?
about area. I don't know too much about Area 51, but I will tell you
Okay.
about Antarctica because Antarctica is a base and it has
Mhm.
been probably since just before World War II, then I have to get into Himmler and all of them because the Andromedans were there first and they came with loving intent. Oh, but humanity and that duality, right? So there was a war
Mm,
fought in Antarctica, but the Americans lost. The Americans tried to take over the base. They lost because of the technology that the Germans created. But when you go down in the subterranean levels, I mean, the technology is mind blowing. It runs on crystal grid energy, what I've seen. But there are many held captive there too. So
and that's so sad. Like, why can they get away? Do they suppress their ability?
I'm not sure what it is. I mean, this is something, I mean, the Galactic Federation of Light always works tirelessly, but it's like a fortress right now. I think eventually they will be freed, but you have to understand, when we talk about the reptilians, the draconians, not all of them are bad because even the
I know.
reptilians keep their own imprisoned. It's so sad. I have friends up there. They are awesome. They're like the flamingos of their kind. I always say that about those that dwell in the city of Shambhala. But I mean, they are awesome because they're like purple, but they have, when it's like their skin is like what do you call that? When you've got oil on the ground, right? And it changes that color.
Oh, yes,
That's how it
yes, yes,
is.
yes. Oil spill.
Oil spill. Yeah, that color.
Or,
It's
yeah,
amazing.
wow.
And then they're very good at negotiating. They're amazing warriors, right? But they have a skill to negotiate between the many different species out in the galactic arena. So, like I said, not all of them are bad. There is
Yeah.
duality in many species, even though many have transcended, like the Arturians, the Venusians, many of the Syrians, and like the Greek. I can't remember where the Greek gods are from, which star system, but the Norse gods, right, are the Pleiadians. So when you think of Thor and Loki and all these, they're Pleiadians.
Every summer since I was a kid, beginning of August, between the 10th and the 12th, that's when the Pleiades are like the shooting stars, and we would lay on the trampoline with my sleeping bag and just watch the
Amazing.
Pleiades every
Yeah,
single year. Yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah, so serendipitous. So we have good portraits of the good and the bad from this conversation, and even like we say reptilians are bad, but to them, they're just doing their thing. That's just what they do.
It's funny that so we say that they're evil, and they're not evil. Eve, you split that word up. You get Eve, right? The feminine, right? From Adam and Eve, the feminine.
Yeah.
And ill. Ill means imbalance of love and light. So what it's merely that they're imbalance of love and light and lacking in the feminine, because the masculine is all about fear, about chaos, about greed and power, so to speak. There always needs to be a balance. And there isn't. So it's just that, they don't love themselves enough, and they have to learn to love themselves. And that can take lifetimes. We could incarnate on a different planet, in a different dimension, and we may well, live duality over there, so to speak. Well, it may be different, but yeah, it's just the way it is. We're all evolving.
Yes.
Whereas all the species are
All the
evolving.
species. Yes. Oh my God. Okay. There's a fly in my I got scared. I was like, is that a spider thing? I'm gonna be so scared of spider now.
I mean, yeah, I had nightmares because I've seen what they've done to children, and what they do. And this is cloaked in an island in the Pacific where the Galactic Federation took me, and they showed me. And it's so sad how they use children as human incubators, trying to create other species, and just spiders, and it's just horrific. But there were others, and there are scientists there too, human scientists. And what they do is, I saw an elderly gentleman. Let's say elderly, he wasn't a kid; he was probably in his 30s, but and I held his hands, and I felt so sorry for him. I said, what have you got? And he called it, he's like, I've got this measles. I said, what is that? He's like, it's like smallpox, or, smallpox with the measles. And what it did to him, I was horrific. It was scratching, but he had blisters all over his body. And there was nothing I could do for him. And I asked him, what's the S then? Actually, he's like, well, that's a serial number. All these viruses, these diseases that they create have serial numbers. And he said, we're test subjects. And I remember coming back, and I was just like, I mean, that was a lot. And there was nothing I could do for any of them. Nothing.
Wow.
It's it's sad. But then again, like in many dimensions, species get experimented on. It's very, very sad. And it's not that the Galactic Federation is not regulating it, so to speak, because they are, but some slip through the cracks, like here on Earth.
Like here on Earth, there's drug being sold elsewhere than in legal outlets, or So I can imagine what it looks like on a galactic scales when the stakes are much higher than just drugs. Oh God, Birgitta, this was a ride, a whirlwind. This was an adventure. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do you have any last words of wisdom to share to the listeners, maybe to end on a positive note?
Gosh, on a positive note, you always say, you know what? Well, the truth will set you free. No, but on a seriously, just I mean, life is a beautiful ride. It really, really is. And don't cling on too much onto your experiences because you're here to experience all of life. And when you cling on to experiences, you forfeit many, many opportunities. So do the work, heal up, do the shadow work. And yeah, and like I said, we're here because it's returning to a love of self and for all, and getting rid of that separation and understanding that we're all beings of the light. We're all brothers and sisters of the light. So there's no difference between you and I. Absolutely not. Yeah, and that's what I say, return to your most authentic nature. And don't forget to live life. Don't allow yourself to be lived. And that's what many people do, unfortunately.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for all of this wisdom and all of this rabbit hole curiosity.
It was.
Feeding was really a lot of fun. Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
So on my website, powersoulhealing.com, and on my Facebook page, Universal Light Warriors.
Thank you so much. All of your links are going to be in the show notes for people to easily click on them. Again, everyone, this was Birgitta from the UK. And thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of the Your CEO Self podcast. If you found value, please subscribe to the show, leave a rating and review. And if you're watching from YouTube, don't forget to click like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next week for the next episode of Your CEO Self podcast. Bye, guys, and thank you.
Thank you, Antoine.
Your CEO Self podcast is brought to you and produced by Your CEO Studios. Thank you for tuning into this episode. The mission of this show is to optimize human and CEO potential through the expansion of our consciousness. If you found value in these episodes, please help the show reach a larger audience by leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Feel free to also share this episode with a friend or a loved one. And on that note, let's dive right back into another episode of Your CEO Self podcast.